the graveyard shift. I know. Okay, it's the afternoon nap shift, which is a little harder than after lunch shift, because this is after the lunch energy dip, and it's before dinner. But you're the faithful that's here. So well done for being here. This is going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of fun this afternoon. And you know, it was such a good question. How are we doing in progressing in this journey? The reality is that we're not there yet. We're not finished. But we've made some incredible progress, and I'm excited to actually share the progress from this morning with you guys and take you a little further. But as they said, we're going to need the mentee, so make sure that you scan the code and get yourself orientated as you find a moment to do that. We've been on this journey together. We started the conversation by speaking about relevance. You guys will remember that the first night we kind of said we're going to speak about the cone of the future. Do you guys remember the cone of the future? Not the cone of shame, but the cone of the future. And then the first morning we spoke about relevance. We continued on to obstacles. And then this morning we spoke about technology and your relationship to technology. I actually met some ignorants that didn't want to respond to the mentee. And they came and explained to me that they are one step further off the chart. That's why they didn't respond. So I was, I don't know if I'm happy or sad to hear that. But as you guys know, we're on this journey together. And we're actually going to come to an end of this 4-part journey tonight. And you might be wondering what's happening next. So I'm going to put you out of your anxious wondering about what's next. Tomorrow, we're going to start bringing it all together. We're going to start answering the question, so what, as we come together tomorrow. So tonight, we're focusing on 2050 trends, and we're actually going to speak into that a little bit, and then we'll do the so what tomorrow morning, what's next, and how do we go from here. This is how you said you felt today. And I was very, very surprised by this. I'm going to tell you in a moment why. But when I asked you what is the prevalent emotion with regards to technology and digitization, the results of the room surprised me. Because what you'll see here is you can break these words up either into positives or negatives. Can you guys see on the chart how there's positives and negatives? You've got overwhelmed, negative. You've got empowered, positive. You've got hopeless, negative. You've got excited, positive, reluctant, negative, and expectant, positive. Do you guys see how they break up? Look at how interesting it is if we actually take that same chart and we break it up in positive or negative. 77% of the room is positive with regards to technology, with regards to their perspective thereof. Now, there is the 23 whose prevalent emotion is negative, but here's the interesting thing, is not only are most of us positive, there's enough positive in the room for us to overcome some of the negative, right? So I'm hoping that you would be encouraged by the fact that this room is overarching 80%. Just about 4 out of every 5 people are saying they're either expectant, empowered, or excited about a digital future, about technology. If you look at the red side, though, I know a lot of us are going to face a lot of that heading back from here, back to our institutions. Is that true for anybody? You don't have to tell me on Mentee. You could just wave your hand at me if you're so inclined. Okay, there we go. But the reality is we're facing some people that's currently maybe not positive. So how do we deal with them? What can we do as we go back to them? We'll speak into that a little bit as we go. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just take a moment to encourage you around some of the things that we've been discovering. So we've been looking through the things that you said this morning. So you'll remember right at the end, we asked the question and we said, okay, if you were to say, what are those things that you're excited about? What are the things that you feel like you can bring into this conversation? We said, what is the greatest opportunity to address digital demand in your context? There's 2 things I quickly want to highlight here. Number 1 is the idea of context. Every context is different. Somebody came to me and said they're working in the context of a nation where there is no resources, there is no information. Do you guys remember information application engagement? They said there is no information, and so therefore their scarcity is in the area of language-specific information. Is that okay? I said that's amazing. As long as you're addressing a scarcity in your context, context is king. So understand the world you live and work in. Everywhere is not the same. You've got to understand the context. And the second thing that I just want to say as an overarching principle is that there's no bad ideas in innovation, right? Even mistakes aren't the enemy. It's just the process of getting to the right answer. So we've just got to keep on exploring. So 4 quick things that came out of this morning, which I thought was great examples. Number one was somebody had this idea of being digitized and diversified content delivery, creating and curating digital resources like ebooks, videos, podcasts, so forth. I thought this was a great idea, how to use LMS. Some of you might be doing this already, but if you're going home and you're thinking, how am I going to bring about change? How am I going to innovate? How am I going to bring people along? There's some ideas here that emerged from our conversation this morning that might spark something, that might stir something. Another idea was the idea of stackable learning. What could it look like to do stackable learning? Rather than just having people enroll for the whole, we have people enroll for parts, and those different parts can put together. What if you had people build Lego projects rather than buy completed cars, right? What if you allowed them to do bits and pieces and piecemeal together what would be most applicable in their context, and you were able to find ways to accredit that? What if you could design stackable content? Another idea that emerged from the conversation this morning was leverage open educational resources. How could we, especially in the developing world, change the way we present what we present to bring the cost down in another context? And what if we led the charge on making these resources available to get the message out there? What if we understood that what we had to offer wasn't the information, but it was the context, it was the community, it was the space, it was the learning experiences, rather than just holding on to the cost associated with the actual information? And the last idea that came out of the group was this idea of fostering learning communities. And what would it look like if we created communities around which learning took place? Okay, so right now, when you listen to these ideas, what are you experiencing, right? Is it creating excitement in your heart? Is it creating a little bit of a, I'm not sure how that would work? Where are you at in that journey within yourself as you're thinking through these ideas? And maybe you had great ideas other than these ideas. The point is, we've got to find and apply these ideas. Different people respond to change in different ways. But unless things change, everything remains the same. Okay, that was very deep this afternoon. I know that it's late in the afternoon, okay? But unless things change, everything remains the same. Is that true? So we've got to implement change. Change is the process through which the future invades the world, right? We've got to go and bring change. But the reality is that when we think about change, there is no change without loss. And there's no loss without grief. And we've got to acknowledge that within every change, there's a loss. And with every loss, there's a grief. And different people adapt and engage with change in different ways. There's the diffusion of innovation. We're not going to necessarily spend too much time on this, but I think most of you would have been exposed to this at some point in your journey. If you haven't, it's a great thing to just take a picture of it, go and Google it. But basically, you'll see that any new idea, there's the innovators that comes up with the idea. Then there's the early adopters. Those are the first people that kind of say, this is great. If you get to that 15% mark, That's when something crosses over the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell so eloquently explained to us. And that's where you have the early majority, the late majority, and then you have the laggards at the end that kind of gets everybody on board towards the end of an idea. But you've got to lead people through this process, and you've got to understand that not everybody is going to embrace the change, the new ideas, the innovation that you are leaving here, and you're going back to an institution, and they're going to respond in a particular way with regards to this. So I quickly want us to grab the Menti, and if you can grab your phone, I want you to consider just the change, both the need for change and the posture towards change. And I want us to consider it in 4 different ways, right? So we're going to consider the need for change, the posture for change, and the need for change. So to what extent are we positively inclined towards change as an individual, as the institution you represent, as theological education in general, and as the world in general, right? So in the broadest sense, I want you to consider those 2 things. And what we're going to do is you're going to actually answer the same 2 questions 4 times over, right? So you're going to say, personally, this is how I feel about change, and this is the extent to which I think I need change, right? So you're essentially in that second question every time, you're measuring the level of irrelevance of that particular space. And if we do this correctly, then we'll say that the world is ultimately, how much is the world in need of change, right? So how much is the theological educational institutions in need of change? How much is your institution in need of change? And then how much do you feel like personally you are in need of change? So it's 8 quick sliders, just kind of draw them as you feel they should be, and we're going to see where the differences lie with regards to it. So it seems like the room is more positive about change than theological education in general, which is less excited about change than what your particular institution is. And it seems like there's a general adaptation or excitement about engaging this. So why do you think these differences are there? And do they align with what you had in mind when you put these together? Good? Okay, I want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to respond to this. It seems like the world is somewhere in the middle, which is to be expected, but it seems like our institutions are probably less in need of change than what we feel we are ourselves, which is surprising to me. I would have thought that those are the other way around, although these blocks are leveling out. Did you answer this the same as everyone else or different? Okay, this is what we're going to do right now. What is shifting that we need to respond to? If you think of the world in 2050, right? You've just considered what the level of need of change is and what the openness to change is. But for a moment, if you consider what the world in 2050 would look like. Okay, so we're going to do a difficult exercise right now. Okay, so did you brace yourself? Okay, you ready? How old will you be in the year 2050? Okay, now for some of you, I'm going to rephrase the question. How old will your youngest grandchild be in the year 2050? I'm not looking at anybody in particular. Okay, but here's the thing, right? We're heading towards a future. Right now, where we are, we're 25 years away from the year 2050. And if I think back of the year 2000 to today, then I can barely imagine how much the world has changed. Is it just me? So basically, if change is accelerating, what does 2050 look like? It's a hard thing to think about. And to put you at ease, I thought we should think about water, and particularly a wave. Because the way trends work, it's like watching the ocean. And if you've ever watched the ocean, you see that the ocean seems calm, but then as the waters come towards the side, somehow this wave starts appearing out of nowhere, and it starts to form, and it starts to crescent. And if you've ever watched a surfer, they know right where to lie to catch the wave, and with very little effort from their side, they're able to ride the wave, and the wave provides the energy all the way through. What are the waves that's in the process of forming towards 2050? What are those things that we need to catch in this process? You are not going to answer that alone, but we're going to stand up and quickly form groups of 3. So 2 or 3 people together. Make sure that one of you is able to respond to the mentee. You can respond multiple times, but I want one person in the group. You can be up to 4 if you really feel like. Don't let anybody be out. But we're going to take a couple of moments and we're quickly going to say, what are the trends that you're identifying within your group? Make sure that there's one scribe that puts them down and captures the trends that you identify. What are the waves that you see forming? Let's stand up, form small groups, and we're going to do it for the next couple of minutes. Let's see how many trends we can come up with that we're identifying amongst ourselves. Let's make groups of 2 or 3. Make sure that there's somebody to write down in your group what the trends are that you're seeing emerging at this point in time. Can you guys, Mariana, time? We're about halfway through, so if you want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to share in your group, that would be great. We've come up with about 153 responses. So if you haven't yet shared your responses, make sure somebody is capturing what's being said in the group so that we make sure to capture them as we go. Okay, I'm going to ask you to start wrapping up the conversation. I know that it's tough. And once again, we can continue these conversations around the dinner table. There we go. So if you can start wrapping up and maybe take a seat, please make sure that you capture all the ideas in the group. We don't want any ideas to be lost to the process. We would love to make sure that we capture them all. So as you take a seat, maybe have a look at what others have been saying. We just crossed the 300 mark. So there's 300 ideas, 300 trends that were identified as a group together. Okay, there we go. Okay, last moment. If you need to submit an idea, please do send it. I'm about to transition here to the very last question for the evening as we wrap up our innovation lab tonight. Don't you just love it? I mean, I was worried thinking about this that people are going to sit here with blank stares when they have to identify the trends that we're facing towards 2050. But it's somewhere in there. If you just start accessing it and somebody says something and you pick up on something else, I've been reading them as they've been coming through here, and there's some incredible things that lies ahead in the future. Maybe you're looking at these and you're saying, man, that was the same, or well, we didn't even think of that one here. So hoping that everybody had an opportunity to submit responses. Going, and gone. Okay. Last question for the evening. And then I'm going to be out of your hair for a little bit. Is if you could change one thing, okay? If Jesus himself showed up in a vision and he said that he's going to empower you to change one thing in theological education. It can be as wild or as impractical as possible, but if there was one thing that you could change, what would you change? Let me turn it around. That one seems to be pretty easy. I'm glad we can't vote, so no one can vote on that one. But if you had the ability to pray one prayer, what would you pray for theological education? If you look towards 2050 and you could say a prayer and you could say, God, would you empower me to change this one thing? What would you trust God to empower you to change? What is that thing that you would want to give yourself to change? What is that thing that you are trusting God that he would empower us together to change? What is your one big prayer, the one thing that you would change? If you could change just one thing, what would it be? What would you deal with? What would you adjust in this process? And we're going to pick up on this tomorrow when we have our final session of bringing things together before our report at the end on Friday. I want to remind you guys that there is an asynchronous way of engaging this conversation. All of the presentations, the conversation is ongoing. We're also hoping to continue this conversation beyond ISET and on CVent, on the WhatsApp, as well as on this QR code. You can actually join the conversation and take it further asynchronously outside of these conversations. So if you feel rushed by it, there is a way that you can do it at your own time. Thank you guys so much. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.